my life's passion, my life's work, and they've given me 3 minutes. Come on. Anyway, so in 3 minutes I'm going to share with you what I know. I was a senior teacher in Bradford and Manchester for 7 years. I left teaching for many reasons, none of which had to do with the children, a lot to do with SMT and all the things that went with that. And I set up a charity called Reclaim. The reason I did that is because before I started teaching, I'd spent a year as a house mom in a very exclusive boarding school. That's another conference. And what happened on Wednesday afternoons is every single child was off timetable for critical thinking. And they had the whole afternoon to think, to analyse, to debate the morality of war, to listen to their teachers, to challenge. There was coffee and tea in the room, newspapers strewn around. And then I went to work in my state school with Moss Side, and all of a sudden critical thinking was off the curriculum. And sometimes for the gifted and talented children, they got to think critically. And I became mildly obsessed about what about all the other children? Why aren't we encouraging young people from the more disadvantaged communities to think critically? Because they're the ones who need to think critically when they're trying to manage all the challenges they've got in their communities and all the pressures that they're facing, and no one's asking them to think and reflect about the choices they should make. So I started Reclaim, and it was a leadership programme for 13-year-old boys, initially in Moss Side. Not about gangs, because as soon as people say Moss Side and see a black woman with black boys, oh, it must be a gang programme. It wasn't a gang programme, it's about how do we find the leadership in these children. And it was getting them to look at their community as an asset, and to work with the strengths that they had in their community, and see that it was a community beyond crime. There's loads of incredible things about coming from Moss Side. Those boys had to be strong and resilient. They had to negotiate all kinds of paths. And what we did is we went back to the community and we said, can we have local people who act as mentors? So local people came forward. And we had people who were unemployed, we had grandparents, we had people with empty nest syndrome who came forward and mentored a young person. Then we went back to the community and said, what can you offer to this cohort of young people? And we had women who said, I can cook for them, that's all I can do. That's great, come in on Saturdays and cook for them. So every weekend for a year, we had those 45 boys come together and work on the leadership that was needed in their community. And we asked them, what are the changes you want to make in your community? What do you need? How do you network? And all the things that a kid at Eton would understand and people would teach them, that's what Reclaim did for these boys in Moss Side. Because the problem is those kids aren't networked. They don't know how to ring someone and make sure that they can get a placement at the UN when they're 18 years old. But we were the pushy middle-class parents for all those children, and that's what they needed. So the programme went on and worked in lots of different communities, and we worked with girls, we worked with lots of different groups of young people. And what changed was the young people started having power and agency, and they started caring deeply about this. And this was not for necessarily top set children, it was for the ones in the middle, and they knew they were in the middle. And a lot of them said, we never get picked for anything. So they found Reclaim so important, their identity. We made it very, very cool as well. We worked with schools nominated them into it. What was really interesting was that the young people got to decide on the priorities. So Reclaim started with the young people writing a manifesto for change and then working to achieve that change over the year. So for some of our girls it was on-street harassment, for some of our children it was the way that refugees and asylum seekers were being treated, for some of our children it was about homelessness. Whatever they wanted to do, the adults in the community supported the young people in achieving that change. And the schools worked with us as an outside provider in ensuring that could all happen. So we did that for many, many years, and we ran the programme, and it's still running really successfully. One of the things I found really interesting was after a few years, the young people came to us and said, we hate the fact that we call our communities disadvantaged. How would you feel if you came from a disadvantaged community? The tagline works for the charity and works for you as the CEO, but it doesn't work for us. We don't want to be badged like that. So I said, well, how do you want to be badged? And they said, well, we're from working class communities. And I was like, well, that's not going to float. And they said, well, we want to kick the stigma out of being working class. There's a class system in this country, we know there is, we're going to call ourselves working class, but we're going to turn it around and we're going to work to kick the stigma out of that. So they called themselves working class young people leading change. And it was the adults, especially middle class adults, who were a bit like, oh, it's a bit radical. Kids loved it, absolutely and totally loved it. And they are so powerful, and they're doing work at the moment, holding MPs to account, changing their areas, and just doing work that makes me incredibly proud. So I ran that organisation for 11 years, got about 40 seconds left. I then left, and I'm in the process of starting up a supplementary school because I love teaching. I'm an educator, I miss teaching. but I wanted to have the freedom to do the things I couldn't do when I was a teacher. So we're setting up a supplementary school that's going to run from 4 till 8 o'clock every night in South Manchester for 45 young people who will be nominated into the programme by their schools or by social services, and some even by the police. And it's young people who have fallen out of love with education. That's how we badge it, just young people who need to fall in love with education again. And every night there will be 4 components to their diet things they get. They will get a nutritious meal that's going to be cooked by a variety of different restaurants, and that's their CSR for a year. They're coming to provide a meal. There's going to be physical education, so every night we've got basketball or football or tennis, but every night there'll be some physical activity. We've got students from the universities who are coming down, so every young person who comes to Rekindle will have a homework support person who works with them. So they will bring their homework from their schools, and then they'll have a university student who will work with them to go through their homework, and they'll have a desk to work with. And the final thing is there'll be mental health support. Every young person will have access to a counsellor every single night if necessary. And some of our young people will just be there 1 day a week, and some, if necessary, will be there 5 days a week. Whatever they need, they will get from the school. And we're working with a local bus company, so there will be a free round-robin bus that brings them from their schools to Rekindle. They stay there till 8 o'clock and then takes them home to safety. So that's me in my 3 minutes talking to you about everything. I think the key takeout for me is I sometimes feel quite guilty that I jumped ship as I saw it. I was a good teacher. I love teaching. I miss it every single day. And I think that maybe if I'd been a bit cute and a bit cleverer, I could have worked out ways of achieving some of this within a school context. But I felt I had to leave because I felt that the community that surrounded my school was a wasted resource. We never connected with those families and those parents to ask them to bring their skills in. And I know some schools do that very, very well. But Rekindle is something that the young people and their parents are absolutely crying out for. They see it as their school. So they're working with us, we're having consultations. It's local people who are decorating it, who are coming up with all the skills and designs for it. And it's going to sit in the heart of my side. Thank you very much.